I come home one day having to tell Sarah Beth, hey, not only is my salary gone that I was, paying out of this company, but also, all of that equity, millions of dollars that we had built up at age 30, has just gone poof, and they've taken it away. And so that was super, super hard, literally just reinventing myself at that time and not knowing really where to go, but just got stuck in and figured out again.
On the show, we're going to sit down and talk about the metamorphosis that happens when you become a leader.
We'll share our biggest wins and our losses and interview other leaders to find out how they stay in charge without losing their minds.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Zach. Welcome to the Who's in Charge podcast.
We're live.
Hey, guys.
Hi. Hey, Marck and Sara. Welcome to Who's in Charge.
Thank you for having us.
I'm so excited that you guys are here. I can't wait. First of all, this is the first time I get to meet you, Sara. And I feel like I know all about you and your family, and I have for years, and this is way overdue to have a double date. So
yes,
especially excited to get to meet you. We have some stuff in common too, which I'm excited to get into a little bit.
Okay.
I think a really nice place to start, just to kind of get to know each other a little bit more too, and for the listeners listening, is just to hear a little bit about your story. Marck, I've known you for the last 7 years. So I feel like I met you guys kind of late in the journey of real estate investing, and I don't know a bunch about how you started. So I think maybe that'd be a nice place to start. Tell us your origin story and how you guys met, and how the heck did this whole thing happen?
Well, for those that are probably just picking up now, I've still got the accent. I'm from New Zealand originally. I came over as a freshman to university. It's funny, the life cycle, that was 31 years ago in August. And now my youngest daughter is set to go off to college and pursue her own adventures. So kind of crazy, that life cycle. But so when I was my daughter's age, crazy, I was coming over to America and had fun first year on the tennis team, traveling all around. But I'll never forget first day of my English 225 class at Cocker Hall at UMKC. Walked into Sheila Honig's English classroom and
fashionably late.
Fashionably late, of course. So, yeah.
No way.
And so I was there was only 2 chairs left, and me and my mate Craig walked in, and it was just stricken by this blonde sitting in the back corner. So I immediately went over there and sat right in front of her. And then luckily, and I didn't even have to tip the teacher to get this to happen, but Sheila's like, okay, let's pair up in 4s. And so it was like, boom, just straight there. And it was our very first, we're age, Steph, but this was our first ever email communication course kind of thing. And so we had to go back and forth on email, and the 4 of us. So it was kind of like Who's Got Mail? Like, that movie resonates with us.
Oh, that's so cute.
The only regret we have is not being able to go back and
to save them.
Save those emails.
We didn't save all of those emails, but it literally showed our entire courtship of just starting off as friends and then getting to know each other. And then you can kind of see it kind of progress. But yeah.
So that met her there, and then I literally was walking home from class that day after I met her, and I told my best friend Craig, that's a girl I could see myself marrying right there.
Oh,
so,
did you feel the same way?
I definitely felt like an instant connection, for sure.
But for clarity, she was seeing someone else at the time, and I didn't think I was dating anyone, but it was not and it was just friends, And I think that's kind of one of the secrets to what has been a successful marriage for us, is just, I feel like I married my best friend, which has been pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So you were on the athletic track, right? You're playing tennis. You're a pretty sporty guy. Sarah Beth, how about you?
Actually, my track was vastly different from what I do now. I used to play the violin, and I was a violinist, and I played at the Conservatory of Music at UMKC.
Oh, wow.
My freshman year of college. And into my sophomore year, I was kind of on the pharmacy route to be a pharmacist and then play my violin. And then in my sophomore year, decided this is not for me. I'm not loving this. And I knew music. I wasn't a music major either. And so being in the conservatory was really difficult for someone who wasn't a music major. I mean, I went to school full time, I worked full time, and then I would practice. And so I was not able to kind of play to the standard of what I probably needed to be in a conservatory. And plus I was leaving UMKC to go to another university, go to nursing school. So I played my violin for the first 2 years in college, met this guy my second year in college. And then, we just kind of hit it off and started dating one night. We went out. I probably shouldn't say this, but I just am going there anyway. But I'd never been to a bar before. I wasn't raised like super naive, but I hadn't been to a bar and I didn't have a fake ID. And these guys were going out one night and wanted me to meet them. And I said, well, I don't know how to get to a bar. So we just went like super early before the bar closed, before they started checking IDs. So all the young people were still there. And that was like our first date, not date, but first time that we were hanging out in an environment that it was like, okay, are we going to go in a direction? Is this going in a direction that I feel like it's going in? And then by the end of the night, we were both kind of like, okay, this is definitely going in a direction we could see us pursuing this beyond just being friends. And that's how after that night, that's kind of how we professed our love to each other that evening. And then just started dating and then got married about 4 years later.
Yeah.
4 years later, got married on June 2nd.
So met in undergrad, which I think is, so Zach and I have that in common. And we also met when I was in nursing school.
Okay.
So very cool parallels. I think meeting each other this young is really interesting. Obviously, like to some degree, especially looking back now, I'm sure you felt like you grew up together, and you got to be best friends. But it's also, I feel like, a very delicate time because so much professional growth happens and so many decisions are being made, and you have to obviously keep choosing each other and like to grow together. But taking us back to like leaving undergrad and like launching your careers. You guys kind of have a varied background and some, guy from across the world, and like you had kind of changed your major and Mark, I think you were pursuing some degree of professional sports, right? Like what did that transition look like for you guys into the professional world?
It's a funny story. So, when I got the start in real estate pretty early on. So I was working actually for Sarah's dad in an advertising venture we were putting advertising inside commercial aircraft, and September 11th hit, and obviously every marketing budget was like completely zeroed out. In fact, they were firing all the marketing teams from all the airlines, and so that business just went away. Wow. During that time period, I had been reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and kind of getting inspired in that way, thinking that might be somewhere where I'd put some retirement dollars rather than the stock market. But we just got married 6 months in, I think. And this is in October of 01. And I went down and took a class. I came home one day. Let me back up. I answered an ad in a newspaper. Gosh, I feel old on this podcast. Where it said, hey, come learn how to flip houses like a millionaire real estate investor. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool lead in. So I went in for free. And so I went to this free seminar, obviously got upsold on a $5,000 training course down in Springfield, Missouri.
Classic.
Yeah. So I come home and that did not go over well, seeing we didn't have $5,000 and I just put it on a credit card. You were so mad.
I'm so mad. I do remember not being supportive because in order for him to, I was like, well, you've got your college degree and you have your master's, and we're newly married. How are we going to spend $5,000 for real estate? Now you want to do real estate? Are you kidding me? So we went.
So I went down there. I said, hey, but the good news is you can bring your partner along for free. And she's like, I have nothing to do with this whole real estate venture. So I took a buddy of mine down, and he never ended up doing anything with it. But it really inspired me, and it found what I found down there was, I think, my calling, which was just giving a maverick entrepreneur kind of want to work for myself and just go kind of kill my own lunch and bring it home. the opportunity to go do it in an environment. And I learned how to buy houses on the courthouse steps. And so that was kind of my little niche that I went and just hammered to death for the next decade and just bought a ton of houses. But just kind of funny that, she was loosely supportive, I would say, given the fact that she was kind of supporting us on her nursing salary while she was okay with, me going off and trying to flip a house. And, luckily we made really good money on our first flip. I say our first flip very loosely there. She would say your first flip, Mark. And, it's always been a bit of a battle. Like Sarah, I would say, came from more of, if it's a rich dad, poor dad. I think we both had a little bit of poor dad mentality, and it was my eyes that were open to more of the you could be a business owner. I think my dad would freely admit that he was fairly conservative by nature and never branched out. He was an airline pilot that always did everything by the book and followed the rules. He actually recently did the PI test when he was back, and he's an altruist, which is just very by the book, everything is done, which is great for an airline pilot, right? Follow the checklist and procedures. But I think I didn't get that education, and my eyes weren't open until I went to this course that said, you can go make as much money as you want, and you can go start a business for yourself, and you can hire people and drive value to a community, and you'll get rewarded for it. And it's kind of like, okay, let's see if we can do this thing,
Well, and it was scary for me because, I think, for women especially, like financial security is a really important thing. And with him doing that, there was so much risk involved, and was so much unknown, especially like starting out. He's starting out to do this, and it's just him. Okay, well, where's the rehab going to happen? And what about painting? And what about roofing? And what about all these things? It's just you. And so at that point, all we had was like the financial security from my 12-hour shifts, my 4 days a week, and sometimes 5, because we didn't have kids. So I could work 4 or 5 12s a week. And that was really, really scary to like put that trust in him that he knew what he was doing and he knew how to execute it, and that we would get the, what do you call it, at the end of it, the fruits of the labor. The fruits of the labor would come at the end. And that was really, for someone who wasn't raised with a lot of financial risk, my parents were very conservative. As a matter of fact, we hardly ever talked about money growing up. It was more, we had a savings account and that was it. But my parents, didn't invest in real estate. They didn't invest in the stock market. They didn't invest in other things. And we were more of a paycheck to paycheck kind of family. So, to all of a sudden go, okay, there's so much more risk. This is beyond what I knew. And from my upbringing, it was very intimidating to me to just all of a sudden trust this whole process. Something that I didn't.
30 years in. I mean, it's fair to say you still, like, it took you probably 15 years.
15. It did.
It's not like you're like, oh, okay with it all of a sudden.
Well, yeah. And because I would come home from a 12-hour shift and he would say, babe, best news ever. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, I bought an apartment complex today. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I was stoked. And Steph, I did not get the elation and cheers and pat on the back that I was expecting. She immediately went to,
did.
You what?
And that's when we decided we don't talk about big decisions after 12 and 14-hour shifts, especially after the second or third shift in a row, that we should just delay those important conversations until a day off. But, and it would suddenly become, okay, well, yeah, that's excellent that we did that. But now what are we doing with it? And when are we going to see the rewards of, yes, we bought it now and it has all this potential for growth and, monthly income to come in, but at what point in time do we see that? Because again, my brain is not a business brain. I'm a guardian. That is me to a T. I'm a lover. I'm a caretaker. So I don't think about business in the same way. Now I have learned how to think about business over the course of the last 25, 30 years. I have learned how to have an appreciation for it and an appreciation for what he does being a business owner, seeing mistakes we've made along the way that are kind of scary, that, our mistakes we know now not to make. But it was all just very intimidating for me to like put my trust into it, that we could start from scratch and go from here to here to here to here, and be successful at it. But here we are 25 years later, you know, I have a little trust now. Took me a little bit to get there, but I do trust the process now, for sure.
I think that's such a great lesson in getting started, right? Like, it's easy to look and be like, you guys are 30 years in, like this is easy for you guys to make a decision, but no, you guys had to learn to make decisions without all of the knowledge, right? With just a free weekend course and without a huge nest egg. Like, when is the best time to get involved in real estate, and what do I need to actually get started? But you said, you know, you didn't have the 5,000 for the course, but yet you made your way to the court steps and figured out a way how to buy property.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steph.
I was gonna say, I think it's really easy to see your collective success now and be like, oh, of course they were successful, right? But I think there's something so powerful about like that freak out of the $5,000. Like, I can relate to that. Like, I felt the same way. Zach had to like drag me along here in the beginning until I like finally got it, and then I do think he created a little bit of a monster. So sorry.
Nope.
But, you know, tolerating risk was not something I was ever exposed to either. Like, that's not conventional education. Investing is not conventional education. So like, when you just spend $5,000 or whatever the chunk of money is on this lesson or this new venture, it's super intimidating. And so similarly, like Zach found our first deal in the newspaper. Like, this was still a thing.
Newspapers.
Yeah, newspapers. And I was super pissed. I was like, what are we doing? We can't do this. But anyway, going back to like the wins, the early wins, I think that part helped me like tolerate risk a little bit. So I'm curious on your experiences with like the first couple things you did after the course. Like, how did you know to go to the courthouse steps, and how did you get like the first incremental win, and how did you build on those wins to kind of put together a proof of concept that you guys could like put food on the table and tolerate like, how did you build risk tolerance?
So I have a strategy. I'm a closer, Steph. So the one thing I know how to do is I do know how to close my wife. So the first property that we bought was from the courthouse steps was a half duplex. And the goal was, you know, we got it for like 30 grand, immediately appraised at 90 after rehab. And then I thought, well, hey, let's move into it and kind of, you know, curate that equity to allow me to roll it into the next deal. So I borrowed the first $40,000 that we needed, private money, paid them back. It was her.
How'd you find that person?
Her father and my father. They each put 20 grand in. So, borrowed some money from them. And then, so that bankrolled the first deal. They believed in me when probably no one else did. And then immediately went to a banker who was able to refi me back out and pay off my father and father-in-law actually relatively quickly. And, but the funny thing was, closing Sarah, we went, this place was like a cat house. Like, now it's no big deal. Like, her and I both would walk in now and do you have something to say?
So this is what happened. Okay.
Let's hear the real deal.
Real story is, he tells me, I think we have our first property that we're going to buy. But it was, you know, public information. It was maybe going to be going to foreclosure, found it, online. And he was like, yeah, it's half a duplex. I want to take you and show you and introduce you to the neighbors. And I remember thinking, why does he want to introduce me to these neighbors? And so we go on the day and we introduce, and they're this elderly couple, the most lovely couple, the most pristine duplex you've ever seen, you know, still have the plastic on the stairs going up.
Nice.
And then
I see what you did there, Mark.
And down the stairs, and had a lovely conversation with them. And then he says, okay, well, you know, thanks, Jerry and Dottie. And then we go, and
she's thinking, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. I can tell you somebody's living here.
Yeah. And I was like, this is great. And then we walk literally next door. And he said, now, before we walk in, he said, just remember what this has potential to look like. It's the exact replica, only reverse from Jerry and Dottie's. Just remember that. And I walked, we unlocked the doors. Mind you, we've already bought it at this point. and I don't remember when that took place, but it was already ours. And we walked in, and I got to the front door and I was like, no, just no, absolutely not. It was full of cat and dog pee and like hoarding, and just, it was like nothing I had ever seen or been exposed to. And I remember I looked at him, I was like, absolutely not. If you think we are going to move into this, you are crazy. We're going to stay at our house. Absolutely not. What have you done? What did you get us into? There's absolutely no way this can turn into something that's beautiful.
So the next question that the better should ask us is, did we move in?
We did move in. We did. And it was a joint effort. You know, there was like 8 layers of wallpaper on the wall, and we, you know, took weekends, and my dad helped us remember a picture of my dad on the ladder getting wallpaper off the walls and replacing all the subfloor of the entire duplex, and carpet and cabinets. And
you say you didn't know what to do. Honey, I didn't either. I mean, this is our first flip, so we're just figuring it out, right? So.
We didn't, but that's how he sold me, was by showing me the beauty of what it could be before I saw the fear. You know, the fear got put in me after I saw the potential. But in the moment, I couldn't.
Classic visionary move.
Yeah, because he is such a visionary, and I'm just not. I don't see things in that way. I see the dirt and the grime and the chaos of what's in some of those houses that we do flip, when you see in like hoarder situations or just very poor neglect type situations. It was difficult for me at first to get past that.
How long did you live in it? How long did it take to renovate it?
We lived in renovate. Goodness gracious. 60 days or something. It wasn't a massive lift. It was all like, now it'd just be easiest thing ever, cosmetic and move on. But no, we lived in there 2 years and then saved enough money to move into a much bigger home than we thought we could afford. And then we lived there for 30 years.
Did you sell it, or did you keep it as a rental?
We still own it today.
Still have it.
Oh, that's kind of romantic. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We, every now and then when the kids were younger, we would drive them by and see, this is where Mom and Dad's first, because it was the first place we had bought together, because when we first got married, he moved into my apartment. And so we lived in my apartment for what, like 5 or 6 months?
Yeah.
Before we got into the duplex. And so we would take the kids and, you know, reminisce down memory lane and say, this was Mom and Dad's first house. And they would be like, what? You know,
they're like, that's pretty big. We're like, no, just the half.
No, just half of it.
No, the half.
Yeah. We only own half of it. But yeah. And that was very scary. The very first house, with it being ours, was pretty scary, but it worked out.
After you were done with it, what did you learn?
Okay, to be honest, I can't say I learned a lot with the first one. I mean, I can say, if I could sit here and say, trust the process. I still at that point didn't trust the process. I still didn't. Then it was, you know, now we're going to buy another house, but someone's going to come in and, you know, is going to rent it from us. Okay, well, that's fine. Well, what are you going to do if they, you know, skip out on lease early? What are you going to do if they can't pay rent? And then what's the eviction process like? Because all of a sudden you can't just evict a person overnight, you know, and then there might go 6 months without rental income from that place if it gets to the point of eviction. And so my brain would constantly be trying to protect, and all the what ifs that could go wrong is where my brain would go for a very long time, until
what changed what changed that?
Well, and I think too, just growth as a person with Mark, watching him as a business owner, watching, you know, it went from him, and then it was, well, he needed a secretary because he could no longer keep up with all the phone calls and all the things, and with billing. And then we needed someone to help him try to find the deals, because he was successful in each flip that he had. but he was getting to the point to where he could no longer just be the only guy doing it. And then we needed 2 people. So we had a secretary and then 2 people. And then the economy changed. Was it 2008? Mm-hmm. With buying on the courthouse steps, with the real estate crisis that happened back in 2008. And then we were kind of having to regroup, and figure out how to buy houses that weren't all going to the courthouse steps. Just seeing him he was always making the right decision.
I don't know about that.
Well,
I was always pivoting. I mean, you just pivot through and try and change and get better. 1% better every day. Yeah.
But it took just watching the growth of where the company was going and that we were having success. And over time, it just got easier to trust. And now I'm very trusting. I'm like, yeah, sure, great. Like if you have an apartment complex or new home builds, not home builds, but new construction. Sure. Like I trust the process now, but
definitely the proof is in the pudding for you though. It has to be baked and done. And then, it's not, it was always challenging with Sarah Beth, always devil's advocate. So, which is good safety mechanism for me. But at the same time, it's like, she was never the one that was like, yeah, you should go and spend $100,000 and hope that we get a return on it. She was always the protector. So, it's definitely been, there's been challenges in that way.
Fear of getting into all this financial debt as well, because at first we would have to take a mortgage out on something, and then you're signing for something. And then it would be like, oh my gosh, okay. So how many mortgages do we have now? We have, it would just be that kind of stuff. And coming home and having something else to sign for. And I would be very nervous. You know what I'm talking about.
Hey, sign this. What is this?
Yeah. She's like,
just sign it, that kind of stuff. And, but in time, all of that gets easier. When you do see the fruits of the labor paying off and the proof in the pudding, like what you said.
I think in the beginning, it feels like when you're building momentum, it also feels like the stakes are just getting higher and higher. And there can be a lot of fear as the stakes get higher and higher. Like you're saying, like how many mortgage statements, how many shifts is that? This is way bigger than me.
Yeah.
Like I can't save this with picking up time at the hospital anymore,
Right.
Right. And I can relate to that too, because I felt the same type of like, first of all, escalating fear, and then like some sort of tipping point where you're like, okay, I don't think it's all going to blow up. I think it's actually harder now for everything to blow up and everything to fail, because now it's somehow diverse enough that it's not probable anymore for everything to come crashing down. And like, if everything comes crashing down, we're probably getting like nuked by somebody, and like it's some catastrophic event that we can never prepare for. Like, I don't know if that was kind of this tipping point for me of like, I actually think it's less probable to completely fail at some point. And that made me feel a little less stressed. But I also related a lot to like being in medicine the very first time. Like the first time you run a code, it's like horrible, right? And then like the 20th, it's always horrible, but like the 20th time you're calmer and you're like,
a well-oiled
okay,
machine. It's
right. You're like
more, yeah,
right. I can navigate this. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's high stakes. Yes, it doesn't feel good, but like I can navigate this without crumbling. Right.
Absolutely.
I don't know. And I think you worked in critical care too, or still do, right?
Yeah, I was an ICU nurse for 16 years, and then I was a flight nurse for about 2.5. So,
rock star, love it.
Yeah, adrenaline. I love the adrenaline.
I know. I don't know. There's something wrong with us, but it's true. I'm the same way. Yep.
It's funny. There's like the different adrenalines, right? Like you're loving the adrenaline of on the flight, and Mark's loving the adrenaline of like
closing a deal. Man, he like for him, it's the negotiating and looping it all together and closing it, man. That's what he loves.
I think that I like to start in the beginning a little bit, because I feel like that's the most common transition point that everybody has, like the getting started and then the like getting going transition point that everybody feels. Now that you guys are almost 30 years into the business, 25 plus years, whatever it is, what do you think the next transition point was for you guys?
Oh, shoot, Steph. There's so many hiccups and pivots. I mean, for me, I'm just a guy that's always going to figure it out, right? So, nothing is giving, everything is earned. So I knew we would just figure it out. And I think just, refusing to lose. I think you only lose if you give up, and I was just never going to give up. So that was kind of my most redeeming feature. But I would just liken them, 2008, bitter business divorce. In fact, it was more of a hostile takeover, where I got screwed over by two guys. I've spoke at length about that on a prior podcast, so I don't need to go into details there. It was just really unfortunate. And so then I come home one day having to tell Sarah Beth, hey, not only is my salary gone that I was, paying out of this company, but also, all of that equity, millions of dollars that we had built up at age 30, has just gone poof, and they've taken it away. And so that was super, super hard, literally just reinventing myself at that time and not knowing really where to go, but just got stuck in and figured out it again. Then obviously, so that was 2008-9, and then 2017, auction.com came in and started kind of, acknowledging to the general public where, you could go. Before, you would drive down a street and you'd see a house that looked like a foreclosure, but no one would know how to get the information, and I did. Well, all of a sudden, you could Google the address, and I'd say, oh, yeah, on June 2nd at 2 p.m., and the opening bid is, $100,000. And so that information was a big kicker for us, and we had to pivot through that. And then obviously interest rates escalating in 2022 was a kicker. Going from effectively 4% to 8% at about a 3-month time period. Investor demand waned, so that was a big kick. So it's just you're getting kicked in the teeth all the way along, and you just try and figure out how to change and adapt and work way through it. Because at the end of the day, real estate hasn't failed. It's just people's perception of what's going on has changed, and you just need to make sure that you can find the new suitor and find out where the deals are, and then, and drive value. I believe that the one thing that saved us is we've always been remodelers. We're not just assigning or wholesaling a deal. We actually do the hard work of either building or rehabbing. And I think when you provide that's adding value to a community. And when you're adding value, that's where I think there's always going to be a chance for the value add to get rewarded on the back end. And so we've always kind of leaned into that.
Well, definitely that's the full supply chain, right? In order you can find your own deals, and then you can take them down yourself and turn them all the way around. Then you control more of the supply chain instead of just a piece of it, right? Like just like the rehabber who can't find the deals and needs to rely on a source, whether it's agents or wholesalers or whatever, and the wholesaler being on the front end, not being able to do the back end.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The more expertise you have in the full thing, the more safe you are and able to pivot.
Yeah. So no, I don't know where, our mindset changed. I mean, for me personally, I think I've just always, I feel like, coming more, I'm just in a position now where I'm leading people and realizing that it doesn't matter what business I'm in. I'm just responsible for leading people. We now have about 47 people in the organization, and I think I'm a big believer in the law of the lid, where, the company will only rise to the heights of its leadership, and that starts with me. So trying to become a better version of myself and understand what motivates people, like digging into PI, like understanding what makes that tick. In fact, the biggest thing I use chat for is just, really digging in and finding out, like, why would someone say this? Or, hey, here's a massive email thread. And these are their predictive indexes, because that's stored in a GPT agent that I have. Why is this happening, or how can I go in and talk to each person and help them understand where the communication breakdown was? Because people in communication, Steph, that's kind of the guts of business, right?
Totally.
One of the things I love about your story is just the idea that I think I made a mistake early on in business with the idea of like, all right, I'm going to figure this out, and then it's going to like coast, right? Like I got a couple problems to figure out, and once I get these problems, we're going to be good to go. But like, you guys have been in this now for 30 years, and, whether it's company shifting, partnership shifting, or economic shifting, you have to continue to stay top of the game. How do you keep your perseverance on that 1% better of always trying to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah. Daniel Marcos would say, like, run to the abyss, like you just know it's coming. So you might as well just run to the abyss, because there is no straight line from bottom left to top right. It's like a whole bunch of pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. So, I think that's where, our marriage, Sarah probably doesn't even give enough credit to, her stabilizing nature as a guardian of how that grounds me. I think if, I didn't have that as a checking point, I probably would have been too aggressive, she's probably laughing saying, you're already aggressive enough. But I probably would
You've been homeless by now.
Yeah.
There's more.
Risked all the chips. But no, I think there's healthy to and from, and just, understanding that, she was always there for me. But just also understanding that, like, I think very, very quickly as a captain. I'm just, strategist. I'm always just thinking on the spot. Give me all the information. I'll make a decision. I can live with it. And I just go fix. Whereas Sara needs to really think through things, and I need to lay out things. So, for example, when you're driving to the airport, and you get a phone call from a friend just saying that you've bought a home in Florida, probably should have talked that one over with the wife beforehand. She's like, "Oh, who was that? You want to tell that little story about?"
So we're driving. We're on our way to New Zealand over Christmas. Okay, my mom is in the car, and Mark had been in Florida and was doing some work there. And he had called me and had spoken with me about this house. And I had said to him several times, and I said, did you buy a house in Florida? And he was like, no, babe, no, of course I didn't. Of course I didn't. I said, okay, because I know you wouldn't buy a house in Florida, like, without talking to me about it first. Like, who does that, right? And he had brought it up like 2 or 3 times. Well, his friend calls, and I can tell, your spouse, the tone of oh, great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, excellent. That's fantastic. And all of the things. And I'm like, what's going on? And he hangs up the phone, and I looked at him. I said, babe, what was that? And he sits there and he goes, well, remember that house in Florida that I was telling you about? And I said, yeah. And he goes, congrats, honey. We own a home in Florida. I'm like, what? You bought a house in Florida without talking to me about it? He was like, aren't you excited? And it was just kind of one of those things of, he saw the opportunity, and he knew the opportunity that was there.
Yeah. So in 2013. And so massive opportunity where we were looking around a subdivision and we were flipping in there. So I put in a super low ball offer on it. And so when she said, she asked the wrong question, because she said, did you buy a house? And I just put an offer in. So I didn't technically buy a house. But no, I put a super crazy offer in that I didn't think the bank would accept. And then they came back and accepted it. And that was on that. I got that triumphant call on the way to the airport, and it was one that, again, if she said no, we don't want it, we could have just flipped it. But it was one that was perfect for us and turned out to be an amazing opportunity. Got some great family memories. We spent a lot of time down there, and then parlayed that actually into another home that we built down there. So yeah, we kind of had a good season of 10 years down in Florida as the kids were growing up that we loved to go down to. But have since sold those. But no. Look, it's, you
gotta laugh.
Stories like that. If you don't laugh, you'd cry.
Yeah. I think you've all probably learned how to laugh about all the craziness. Yeah.
And I think too, like, when you compare nursing with what I did, especially, Stephanie, with critical care, like, you don't take risk. You don't take risk in what we're doing, and when we're treating someone and saving someone's life, the kind of risk that he takes is not, no one's dying, and no one's dying in real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that was always our thing. It's like,
yes.
On my shift, yes, that happens sadly, but not on his watch, with what he does.
100%. And that Zach and I were talking about that in the kind of middle of our journey, because I would freak out over the fact that a roof was leaking, right? I'm like, on the rental, and we have to replace the roof, and it's going to be like $8,000. And I would lose sleep over a freaking roof, right? But I would be on call for the hospital, transfusing, massive amounts of blood and titrating drips and all this stuff, and be like, no, that's fine. Yeah. He's like, you're literally freaking out about a roof, but you don't freak out about that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I have more control with the other thing. I'm like, right. Maybe I don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was a wake up moment for me.
So relatable for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really get that.
I don't know
I mean,
why
the feedback
it feels...
loop on some of your decisions in medicine, right? Like the feedback loop is a little bit quicker for one.
Yeah.
And for two, you have, tried and true tested numbers of like, hey, 1 million patients were put through this study versus like, well, this is Zach's third home he's bought. Well, we'll see how this goes.
No. Well, one of the things that I love about the format of this podcast is just kind of getting into a little more, like, first of all, behind the scenes and like super successful operators like you guys and what that looks like in your relationship. But I think that's important to talk about in a forum like this because it's such a big component of success in the business world is like what happens at home and how this whole thing kind of bleeds in and out to like your marriage and your children and what you're building as a legacy together. Like you guys you mentioned your different predictive index, personality tests. Like I'm sure learning that in business has been applicable at home with you, both of you and your marriage and your children. How have you felt it overlap? Like what have you taken from the business world home or vice versa?
Yeah, I think there's definitely correlations from business to home. I think, in every long marriage that, where you do have children, I think there's kind of a stabilizing personality that's Sarah's just an amazing mother and stabilizer. The kids always know that she's there, but they also want to take risks and they want to push themselves. And dad's there to like, yeah, you should jump off that cliff. Let's go. And it's kind of like, fairly typical husband-wife combo. And I was always encouraging them to, be fearless. I think, one of the things I'm most proud of, Jackson's just a go-getter, really strong kid and excited. He's actually interning with us this summer. So that'll be fun. But Aubrey, in her own right, I've always been mindful of trying to raise a really strong, confident, self-assured young girl because the girls in America are under a lot of pressure to perform and not be subservient to their husbands and go and and really drive for success and there's more women now in university than men and I just needed her to be self-assured so she wouldn't get in my mind like taken advantage of by some guy or being put in some uncompromising situations and I think Sarah was the rock for her to kind of build a confident young girl but also her seeing what a positive marriage looks like, I think has built some good boundaries that she's implemented with her dating life as a young girl. But now she's, blazing her own trail. I mean, she chose to go to a Catholic high school that we had not, had any relationship with before. She thought that would be best for her and had a great experience there. It was a great decision. And now she's, instead of just following her brother to University of Missouri, she's like, nope, I want to go to University of Arkansas. So it's like, we're seeing now, you start getting to that age and I'm feeling, you kind of walking in the shoes of your parents where the pride for us now is just when you hear back from, some friends of ours of, oh my gosh, I saw Jackson. He's just such a fine young man. I'm like, that brings so much pride to us when, you get that kind of feedback, knowing that you've done something right. But I think it takes two. I think it takes the stabilizer and someone that's a little more like giving them, maybe a little bit of the confidence to push limits as well. What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree. I mean, my nickname with the kids and with Mark was Scaredy Cat Mom, because the kids because in nursing, you, especially in ICU and at a trauma center, you see everything, when it came to riding bikes, put your helmet on. When it came to a scooter, put your helmet on, and so I was always don't go too far out in the ocean. You could get swept out by a current, and he's the one that would take him out in the water and
Let's go.
He's like, let's go. So they saw both sides of it, but I think he's absolutely right. You've got me who again is more like the stabilizer. Let's keep everybody nice and the peacemaker. And then he's a little bit more out there and a little bit more spontaneous and all the things. And so for the kids to have seen both of those traits, I guess, and to be raised with both of those, they've just turned out to be I don't know, they're pretty awesome people.
How did you guys approach financial literacy with your kids? Like Sarah Beth, you said like no one talked about money before. How did you guys lean into that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, my parents were pretty particular about that. I do remember one time when, because as an international student coming over to America, you had to prove, financial wherewithal from your parents. And so this American university required that dad disclose how much money he made, and he was not happy. Like, he did not talk about finances. And I just remember that being a kind of something that triggered him. I've been the opposite. I talk openly about it because I think there's such merit. You can really, now we're very clear about, hey, this is a family only conversation we're going to talk about now. And and this is something you can talk about with your sister. And this is something, hey, don't talk about with your sister. Like we frame all of our conversations, but I've been very, very open and transparent. I mean, again, I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way. I've always taken the approach of being very open with Jackson, specifically. Aubrey's a little more carefree, the free spirit, couldn't care less. There's always money in her bank account. It's weird, Zach. I don't know what happens. But we all have one of those children. But no, Jackson's very financially driven, and wanted to understand money and learn it. So I think you've just, as a parent, when the student is there, the teacher will appear. And I think you've just got to be mindful of where they currently stand, kind of always be trying to be 2 steps ahead of them. You can see where their brain's going. But we've been open and pretty transparent with finances with the kids and how that all worked, even talking college and cars and those kind of things.
And I think too, like we started when they were really little, like we went through a course at church several years ago. It was a Dave Ramsey course, Financial Peace University. And so we started with our kids. They had their saving, their giving, and their spending envelopes. You remember that when we did that with the kids, and they could put their own little, when they would come home, or we would give them extra change return from going somewhere, they would put their coins in there. And then when I would work on the weekends and work my Friday, Saturday, Sunday shift, Mark would always take them that month when I did my full weekend. He would take them to the bank, and they would go with their piggy bank, and they could weigh their coins, and they would, say that they're there to make a deposit, and they would make a deposit, and they'd get their deposit slip back. And so we did that very early on with the kids, which is not something I was ever raised doing. I wasn't raised taking money to the bank and putting it in savings and getting a receipt for it. So they, from pretty early on, wouldn't you say?
So here's a cool one for you. I remember when Jackson was 8 years old, we're in the back of the car one day, and Sarah was working. And this is an 8-year-old, and he says, Dad, and you could see his kind of wheels just spinning because he's like, I know mom's working today, and she's getting paid, but do you work when you go, do you get paid when you go to work as well? And he was suddenly understanding that, like, Sarah was trading time for money as a nurse, and I was building a business, and I may or may not get paid that month depending on how well the business was doing. And, for an 8-year-old to kind of pick up on that differentiation between trading time for money versus trying to build a business that spits off money even when you're sleeping is a very interesting distinction. He's always kind of had that little brainchild. So I think he must have seen something in us that was a little bit different for him to kind of trigger in that regard.
I do think you talk about money differently when you have a job, right? Like, I'm going because I need, like, you kind of, whether you're conscious of it, of saying it out loud, you're like, well, mommy's got to work. That's why, so you can get your birthday presents or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you kind of talk about it in a different way than you talk about with a business where, like you said, you either are making money when you're sleeping or you're not making money when you're working.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's been really important distinction. And then there's the, conversations change over time. Like now it was cool. Jackson, was able to have some pretty cool conversations with me. Now he's going into his junior year of college and he's taking some finance courses. And now it's kind of more like, openly discussing like what he's seeing in some of his friends and friends' parents and how their relationship with money is different than what we have said. And he wants to challenge some of those preconceived notions that he might have had and understand it and then come up with his own ideas. So I think, again, as my outlook on money has changed over the years and how I see very clearly now the benefits of being a business owner versus, what others of friends of mine are doing, that are just trading time for money, whether it be insurance or sales or, a car salesman or whatever. You have a different opinion, and just, not saying that anything's right or wrong, but just exposing him to those differences so he can make his own decisions is kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, at least give them context so that when they're in different environments, they notice something different. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for hopping on. I love this idea of learning and growing together, and from a couple that's, seen so much, right? You guys have been 30 years into the business, and as much success as you guys have had in business, I love even more that you guys are right side by side together today, making it, like you said, now you've launched a business, now you're launching kids into the world, and excited for you guys and your next steps.
Thank you guys so much for
coming.
coming.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Yeah, such great conversation. Thanks again.